He's a real nowhere man, sitting in his nowhere land, making all his nowhere plans for nobody.
Yeah, my mother, Mona Best, she bought this house in 1954. A really huge house, you can see, an old Victorian house. And she watched a programme with my brothers Pete and Rory called the 6-5 Special. And that programme was doing a special on the Two Eyes Coffee Bar in London. Oh yeah, well once it was decided that they were going to play, because the club was still a work in progress, they were still putting the whole thing together, Mo made it very clear to the boys that they'd have to help out. John was given one room where he did the ceiling of that room. His first attempt, he did his three-toed, pot-bellied figures all over the ceiling, which Mo didn't like. His second attempt, he painted the ceiling green, which Mo didn't like. And eventually she told John, I'll give you an idea. She told John she'd like to see something Aztec, something Mexican. So John did this Aztec Mexican design all over the room that we now call the Aztec room. With regards to Paul painted the rainbow ceiling, this rainbow ceiling in the first stage area. This was painted by Paul, and those colours, some of you may recognise, the same colour scheme was used for Magical Mystery Tour. They used the same colour scheme for Magical Mystery Tour. And then George, Pete, George, John and Stuart Sutcliffe, in the bar area, there's a ceiling which is covered in stars. And all of the 5 original Beatles did the ceiling in the bar area, which is all these silver and white stars on the ceiling. They were done by the 5 original Beatles. Friendships were forged at the Casbah. It was where John, Paul, George, Stuart and my brother Pete Best really got to know each other. Pete had seen John, Paul and George playing as the Quarrymen. John, Paul, George and Pete had seen Pete playing as the drummer in the group the Blackjacks, and it was because of that that John, Paul, George and Stu, who were now Silver Beatles, having seen Pete perform at the Casbah with the Blackjacks, they approached Pete and asked him would he like to become the drummer of the Silver Beatles, that they had a professional engagement in Hamburg, Germany. They were about to become a professional group, and if he was to join them, he'd become a professional too. Of course, Pete said yes. The boys rehearsed here for 3 days. They left for Hamburg. The Hamburg story is its own story. Of course, as we know, George was sent home for being too young. Pete and Paul were deported for allegedly trying to burn the Bambino cinema down. And John and Stu followed later. But John and Stu followed because Pete spoke to our mother and he told Mo how good the Beatles, they dropped the silver in Hamburg, they were the Beatles now. The Beatles had become so good in Hamburg and it was a terrible shame what had happened to them. But they needed someone to help and they needed somewhere to play. And he asked our mother, would she book them to play the Casbah and would she help looking for other work for them? She said she'd be happy to. The first time the Beatles played in this country, the first time the Beatles played in Liverpool was on the 17th of December 1960, and it was here at the Casbah on the Spider stage. Pete and Rory had such a large amount of friends, and their friendship circle had grown and grown to the point where it was taking over the house. Mo had seen this programme about the Two Eyes Coffee Bar in London, and basically she thought, hey, I can 2 birds with 1 stone. I can create a business, the Casbah Coffee Club, and by doing so I can give Pete and Rory a place for their friends and themselves to hang out. You know, so it was perfect. It was a business which also accommodated her sons and their friendship circle.
When did you decide to open up this house for the public?
Over the years we've had so many, and I mean, I couldn't put a figure on it. There's been so many people knocking at the door, can we see the Casbah? Can we just pop our heads inside? Could we have a look at the club? And of course they couldn't. The family had been using it as a storage facility. It was absolutely jam-packed, room to room. And then eventually we made the decision to give it a go just for one weekend. Let's just test it. Do people really want to see it? So we cleared it all out, and for one weekend we opened the doors, and it was absolutely jammed, packed the whole weekend. So from there we thought, do you know what? Let's put it on the tourist trail. Let's put it back where it should be. As the holy grail of the Beatles trail, the place where it did all truly begin, and it's been very successful. It's been very successful.
He's a real nowhere man, sitting in his nowhere land, making all his nowhere